Okay, hello everyone. I would like to begin our research seminar today. Okay. So our speaker today is Claude Rosental. Is coming directly from Jerusalem, which is not so far, but in general from Paris. And as I said, we have more international program this year with the end of the COVID as social I had a long COVID probably epidemic, and so we have, this is a role of a series of a few talks will be in English. We are the first, I think, 4 now, correctly. So Claude Rosental is at the Centre National de la Recherche Scientifique, in Paris, and this is the second year as the Centre de Recherche Français à Jérusalem, כלומר, גם מי שלא יודע צרפתית הוא הבין שזה. Understood that this is the research center, the French research center in Jerusalem, and he is a sociologist of science and a professor of sociology. He has a background both in the humanities and in engineering, and was a visitor in many places in Stanford University, the Institute of Advanced Studies in Princeton, and others that you can find in his biography in the internet. I would just mention one of his research or his outbooks. Sorry, is this last book, which is connected to the talk today. Is called The Demonstration Society. It was appeared in 2021, but at MIT Press, and the demonstration is not a protest, but in order to show what it is. And his talk today will be connected to that, and the title is "What Can We Learn from Observing Technological Affairs? The Case of an Israeli High-Tech Event." So thank you very much for coming to talk with us.
Thank you so much, Shaul, and everybody for this invitation. I'm very glad. I'm not coming from too far today. I come from Jerusalem, as you said, Shaul. But סליחה, אני צעיר מדבר באנגלית, כי אני לא יודע הרבה מילים בעברית, אבל אנגלית זה בסדר, I hope. So and I would like to say just a very small note. I'm working in a research center in Jerusalem that is affiliated with the National Center for Scientific Research in France. And I just would like to mention that if you'd like to do some research in France, there are some grants programs that could help, Israeli researchers to go to conduct some research in France. So please contact me. You can just Google me, and I will be very happy to close this parenthesis to talk about today's topic. There are a very large number of technological conferences and fairs that are organized around the world nowadays. And this is a really massive phenomenon that raises many issues for sociologists, for philosophers, for historians of science and technology. And there are many among these various issues. One may, for instance, raise very basic issues like why and how these events take place, what types of stakes they have. And in order to contribute to address these very basic issues, I would like today to analyze the activities and the interactions that took place during a high-tech conference that recently held in Israel. And based on empirical data, based on ethnographical observations, I carried out during a high-tech conference on site. So I would like to unveil some of the material, the organizational and cognitive aspects of this so-called event. Sometimes it's called, a conference is called an event or a summit, or there are many words used to describe this type of gatherings. So I would like to show in particular how this high-tech conference led to a massive production of public demonstrations. So as you said, Shaul, I'm not referring to street protests, but I'm referring in particular by demonstrations to demos, that is public demonstrations of technologies. So I would like to highlight some of the various aims that these public demonstrations serve. And while conducting this analysis, I would like to illustrate how technological conferences are an important component of what I have called a demonstration society in a book that appeared last year, as we mentioned. So I'm referring by demonstration society to a society whereby public demonstrations, not only street protests, but including public demonstration of technology, are widespread and play significant roles. So demos, you might be, as I said, demo is an abbreviation of public demonstration of technology. These demos have major stakes nowadays, including scientific, economic, and political ones. But they are certainly no contemporary inventions. They have a very long history that includes, for instance, the demonstrations of the Atwood machine in the 18th century, or those of the, for example, the magic lantern in the 19th century. This is another very canonical example. And as for technological fairs, although I'm going to talk about contemporary matters today, they also have a very long history. The latter is part, I think, of the development of various types of large gatherings in the Western world. This includes the rise of fairs in Europe in the Middle Ages, and the development of industrial exhibitions in Europe and in North America since the end of the 18th century. It comprises also the expansion of large sectoral exhibitions and universal exhibitions that celebrate the virtues of human genius in the end of the 19th century. It also includes the spectacularizing of science museums, the rise of science centers, and the development of thematic and professional exhibitions between the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 21st century. So I think there is no tunnel history, you know. I think that the way the periodization and the scope of this massive phenomena has to be related to this very wide range of so-called events. Some social scientists have studied several aspects of tech fairs in the contemporary period. Their publications provide useful insights into the organizational, institutional, and material aspects of high-tech conference nowadays. However, the ways in which technologies are demonstrated and the roles public demonstrations play in such contexts may be, I think, analyzed further. So I will focus on these important dimensions in the case of the high-tech summit that I just mentioned. I would like to have, in 45 minutes, a very focused presentation. So I will first look at the demonstrative setting and dynamics that characterize this event. And I will then analyze in more detail case, a demo that was given during one of the sessions of the conference. So the high-tech conference I observed was held at a convention center in Jerusalem in 2020. Based on the data I could gather, there were more than 23,000 registered participants, stemming from almost 200 countries, including more than 1,000 entrepreneurs, around 500 venture capitalists, and representatives of 600 multinational corporations. And also more than 200 speakers. So it was a one-day annual event organized by a firm which I will call Prompt Invest. I use a pseudonym here for anonymity purposes. So Prompt Invest is what is called an investment platform that selects startups in Israel and also elsewhere in the world. It both invests and promotes co-investments of various actors in the startups it has selected. So it has also created high-tech funds, of which large companies and several kinds of investors can buy shares. So 33,000 entities had invested in Prompt Invest financial product at the time of the event. And Prompt Invest also accompanies the startups it has selected in various ways, not only by investing money, but it provides mentoring and connections to other actors, such as large companies, in order to create what they call synergies, or to contribute to make them grow and increase their value. One of the main goals of the organizer of the summit, I will call this summit Prompt Invest 2020, was to promote Prompt Invest itself to a public of investors, so whether venture capitalists or large companies. And it was also, the goal was also to promote its funds and the individual startups. The investors could become co-investors, partners of the startups belonging to the Prompt Invest portfolio. And another targeted audience was composed of journalists who could report on the event in various media and thereby help promote Prompt Invest and its startup in larger circles. So this context contributed to make Prompt Invest 2020 a media event, as well as a demonstrative festival. By that, I use this barbarian expression to refer to a gathering whereby an audience could come to watch public demonstrations of various kinds. The organizers used different means to demonstrate to investors and large companies that they could trust Prompt Invest and that this set of high-tech companies were of the highest qualities thanks to a rigorous selection. One of these means consisted in displaying the quantity and quality of actors, and especially speakers, that Prompt Invest was able to gather during the summit. This included major corporate leaders, for instance, CEOs and high-rank executives of notorious firms. It also included prominent authors and scientists. For example, there was a Nobel Prize winner coming from the Weizmann Institute, but it also gathered famous political representatives and government officials, in addition to a large number of entrepreneurs and investors. All this served as a demonstration of strength, of success, and credibility of Prompt Invest. This demonstration of strength was also supported by a rich program of activities. It included a long list of lectures, roundtables, training sessions held in parallel. The diversity of topics and of the categories used to classify the latter contributed to show that Prompt Invest had a very wide range of expertise and that it was a key player in the high-tech industry. Plenary sessions bore, for instance, on Prompt Invest activities, on how the company uses its networks for business development, or also on the most promising startups and investment opportunities. They also bore on current top tech trends, on the latest development of cybertech, and on the future of the startup nation and its cooperation with other countries in the region. So, in addition to these plenary sessions, breakout sessions address several issues. For example, how to build autonomous cars in the framework of current regulations, how the US-China competition affects investment in Israel, or to give you a last example, what are the main trends in health tech, for example.
Just that one. Right. Do you hear it? Do you hear him clearly?
Okay, good to know. Thanks. Regarding the training sessions, some were organized for investors and focused on how to invest in startups. Other training sessions, especially designed for high-tech entrepreneurs, go on how to do fundraising, how to recruit what they call amazing people, and how to sell one's company, or what is usually called exit. This mix of topics shows that Prompt Invest possesses a strong expertise on many specialized issues related to the high-tech industries, but also broad views on economic and political matters, which could all feed wise investment decisions. You know, the change of focus was very important. Other activities organized during Prompt Invest 2020 put forward another strength of the investment platform, namely its powerful network and its ability to connect all kinds of actors. This was one thing that was very much on display. A strong emphasis was put on networking. Many meetings were organized in advance or favor in order to put in touch the startups selected by Prompt Invest with the participants. There were actually more than 1,000 one-to-one meetings that were scheduled by the organizing team before the summit started. These scheduled meetings were held in designated rooms, while more informal gatherings took place in various spaces of the convention center. These spaces included bars and food stands around which people could stand or sit and discuss while eating food or drinking. This apparatus contributed to increase meeting opportunities, as participants didn't have to exit the convention center in order, for example, to eat or drink, etc. during the event. Another important meeting device consisted in booths held by startups in the exhibition halls of the convention center. These booths were privileged spaces for representatives of the startups to meet attendees. Many meetings took place during what they call networking breaks between sessions, or during the party that ended the summit in the evening, to be continued later on at Jerusalem Open Air Market. So this is part of the socializing process. As the program of the conference stated, during network party, I quote, at the end of the summit day, the incredible networking continues into the night as the crowd moves to Machane Yehuda Market, the cultural center of Jerusalem. The night will be filled with delicious food, craft beer, live music, and great conversation. End of quote. Besides, although the summit lasted for one day only, some participants had an opportunity to network during a whole week. Some events were organized by Prompt Invest for its VIP participants. It consisted, for instance, in private lectures and visits to startups. As a result, Prompt Invest 2020 contributed to put in touch and sometimes in relation, I insist on the difference, putting in touch and putting in relation, various actors, as much as it displayed the strength of this global connecting activity to the participants and to the media. Some of the meetings consisted mainly of discussions, but others were strongly mediated by demonstrations of technology. Some interaction took place, for instance, around demonstrations of products at the booths of the conference. Among other things, information, contacts, and ID were exchanged while or after the working of devices was demonstrated. So demos did not simply consist in displays of technologies, but they were essential conditions for exchange of all kinds of resources, while they contributed to shape the nature of interactions and relations. Many demos were also given on stage in front of larger audiences. As I will illustrate later, as I said, these demonstrations often consisted in large shows or even in theatrical performances to some extent, depending on the meaning one gives to the notion of theater. Thus, Prompt Invest Demonstrative Festival was largely made of public demonstration of technologies produced on site. Demos did not simply serve Prompt Invest goals. They also help entrepreneurs find investors, partners, or clients, and promote their companies in the media. They were tools that possible investors used to decide whether or not they should invest in given startups, in addition to other tools. The political representatives use demos as an opportunity to associate their image with technological progress, entrepreneurial dynamism, and economic prosperity. Demos also help journalists produce attractive pictures and videos of the conference and publish enthusiastic stories about the technologies on displays. Entertaining, unexpected, and impressive demos were useful resources for journalists to capture the attention of their audience and argue that something happened, that an event was taking place, and more particularly, that significant innovations, a cabinet of curiosities, and the future could be seen on site. As a result, demos played various roles at different levels for many actors. They also contributed to define the meaning of participating to the meeting for its attendees. Participating to the conference did not simply consist in walking from one meeting place or lecture to another, standing, sitting, discussing, listening, eating or drinking. It also consisted in seeing and sometimes touching or manipulating devices. Active participation and the large set of activities proposed during the summit contributed to a very energetic atmosphere and to the celebration of various values. One of them was technological progress backed up by science as a source of individual profit and pleasures. This appeared in the narratives produced during the conference as fully compatible with collective prosperity and benefits for humanity. Capitalism and high-tech could work hand in hand and appeared as a form of humanism as technologies were portrayed as solutions to all kinds of societal problems, and as economic growth contributed to better conditions of living and increased pleasures. The power of individuals was also celebrated Why? Because the latter could, the individuals could efficiently act in and on the world while finding solutions to many problems and being active at networking with others. So in order to illustrate, the ways in which such values were carried by the demonstrative festival, and also in order to unveil how the demos were run, I think it is useful now to focus on one detailed example. So many sessions of the conference participated in portraying the world as made of problems that could be solved, especially thanks to appropriate technologies. This, what I can easily call technological solutionism, is illustrated by the summary of a session that was called the High-Tech Horror Show. I quote, "Our worst fears and how startups can address them. Climate change, the dark web, gene tinkering, fake news, cyber hacking. We are putting the sum of all fear on stage in dramatic live demos, scary videos, and audience participation, then showing how Armageddon can be avoided through breakthrough technologies that will protect your privacy, treat disease, save life, and help you sleep at night." End of quote. This summary illustrates how new technologies were not only portrayed as sources of profit and as a basis for a flourishing liberal economy during the summit, but also as an asset for humanity to the extent that they could solve problems the latter faces in many domains: medicine, environment, cyber life, etc. Dramatic live demos were key to support both this narrative and this solutionist view of the world. This may be also illustrated by the content of another session entitled "Demo Theater, No Pitches, Just Wow." Okay, so its outline gave the talk. I quote, "A lineup of the coolest, most eye-popping technologies from leading-edge startups, live demonstrations by the innovators themselves, with a bit of unique audience participation mixed in. Popcorn will be served." I think these abstracts highlight the fact that impressive, entertaining, and peppy demos played a crucial role in the demonstrative festival. The event did not simply rely on verbal arguments and exchanges, but also very much on showing technologies in action, accompanying discourses with gesture and visual support, and producing spectacular shows involving audience participation when possible. Among the technologies presented during this session, one bore on a device that transformed a Wi-Fi box, an internet box, into a radar in order to detect and analyze the moves of the persons in the surroundings of the box. Several applications of this device were put forward, but one main use case was shown on stage. It consisted in detecting unusual activity at home, such as an elderly person who would fall on the ground while walking to the bathroom. A demo was given showing how the fall of an old man could be detected and give rise to automatic calls to his family and to medical emergency services. So this presentation, I think, is worth a detailed analysis. The performance was introduced by a presenter of the demo theater session in a very energetic way for around 1 minute. The company, which I will call Serenity, was described as reinventing Wi-Fi. In order to warm up the large audience in the room, the presenter asked that those who didn't have a Wi-Fi connection in their house, raise their hand. If you don't have a Wi-Fi connection, please raise your hand. He then insisted on the fact that a stronger round of applause be given to welcome Serenity. Then the presentation itself lasted for around 11 minutes. It was composed of an introductory pitch with a PowerPoint presentation on a large screen for the first 5 minutes or so. Then a 3 minutes demo was given, followed by a 3 minutes concluding speech. The introductory pitch started with an enthusiastic tone. I quote, "Hello, so much energy. I'm super excited to be here." End of quote. It was followed by a one-sentence introduction of the speaker. I quote, "My name is Michael Clark. I'm the CEO and founder of Serenity." End of quote. It then led to a brief presentation of the activities of the company. Based on the idea that Wi-Fi is, I quote, everywhere, Michael Clark argued that it, quote, "makes sense to try to make more out of your Wi-Fi, generate more value." End of quote. Using a few sketches on a PowerPoint presentation displayed on a large screen, he then explained in a concise manner how the radar system worked. And he said, I quote, "It's a little bit too technical, quite scientific, so I'm going to spare you the details." He insisted on some of the possible ways in which the technologies could be used. Michael Clark mentioned that the radar could help locate a person, count how many people are in a room, tell if a being is a human or an animal, and identify the types of moves of a person thanks to well-trained machine learning algorithms. The radar could detect if a person is, for instance, walking forward, walking backward, sleeping down, sitting down, standing up, running, moving his hands in a circular or another way. Then Michael Clark gave a demonstration showing how the radar system could detect the fall of an old man and then call his family and an ambulance. So I will come to this later. Finally, Michael Clark used again a PowerPoint presentation to evoke other concrete uses of the technology for elderly care, such as monitoring, I quote, "the amount of steps that an old person was doing throughout the day." Based on that, we can get to conclusions about his health situation. He then mentioned possible applications in other domains. Examples, I quote, could be safety, home security, energy management, smart cities. We are looking at applying these technologies within office buildings, within factories, but in addition, that Wi-Fi technology can monitor and count how many people are in front of the TV at a certain point in time. Also, maybe analyze their gesture, and that information can be fed back to the TV provider or the advertiser to help improve their monetization. End of quote. So the presentation ended with these examples and was followed by a few comments from the presenter of the demo theater session before, this presenter introduced another company, introducing many companies in the world. So I quote him, "That's beautiful. Thank you, Serenity. I mean, it's basically Wi-Fi, like you have in your house, meets radar. Redefining Wi-Fi. It's incredible." End of quote. Let us now move to the content of the demo. Michael Clark commented on the actions of an actor representing an old man called John, who went to a sofa, sat there, stood up, and fell down. So I will I quote it. And with that said, so this is the demo itself. I want to do a small demo. So I'm going to invite over a friend here. His name is Sean. He might look young, but he's actually 80 years old. He's pretty healthy. And this is his apartment, right? Imagine that this is his living room. And this is a sofa where he loves to sit down and watch TV. So imagine that the TV is here. Now, this is our router with our Wi-Fi radar inside, okay? That's a prototype of our radar. And we have here two screens, right? The first screen, which is on my right or on the left, shows two things. The first one is the tracking of his movements. We'll see a red dot, which is following his movement inside the living room. And the second one, the blue screen, or the blue portion, actually is going to depict his movements or the analysis of his movements. In the middle, we are going to share you with some insights or some triggers or alerts that we are generating based on these events as we speak. So with that said, let's see what's going to happen when he's going to watch TV. So as you can see, when he's walking, we are supposed to see that when he's walking, there is a red dot which is following his location. And this red dot is actually indicating his whereabouts. Parallel, what we are able to do is to identify the exact dynamics of his movements. So here the system was able to identify two events, walking and sitting down. We are doing that without invading his privacy because this is not a camera. We are not taking his pictures. We don't know who he is. We are just analyzing certain movements and certain events. That's the beauty of using Wi-Fi. Now he's watching TV, and at a certain point, he needs to go to the bathroom, and let's see what's going to happen. So please go ahead. Just talking to John. So as you can see, we are tracking him, and then, unfortunately, he fell down. Now, this is an important event to monitor, because this is an emergency event. And what we can see here on these screens is actually two things. The first one is that we are able to detect the fact that he stood up. Second thing, we are able to detect the fall event. And based on that, the system generated an alert. The alert was sent to John's mobile device, and the app is showing that a fall event has been detected in the living room. And the app is calling an ambulance. Now, let me check on it. Are you okay? Okay, so we can cancel the ambulance, and he's going to go back to his sofa. And we can see that the red dot keeps on tracking him, and that we were able to identify the sit-down event. End of demo. So this demo, like the whole presentation, clearly carried various values I previously evoked. The technology was not only portrayed as an opportunity for new profit, for instance, for TV providers and advertisers, but also and first of all, as acting for the good of humanity. Although it was not depicted as a source of pleasures, like other devices presented during the same session, it was shown as a tool that could save the lives of elderly people and help improve their health, as well as improve the safety and management of factories, homes, and cities. And despite the fact that the radar system could easily be seen as acting against people's privacy, it was described, on the contrary, as helping to protect it compared to cameras. Thereby, the presentation also illustrates how technological solutionism, what I said, permeated the narratives, the exchanges, and the worldviews during the conference. The performance corresponded to common ways of practicing presentations and demo in the high-tech industry. It also matched various norms produced by specialists of the marketing of technologies, inspired by Steve Jobs' communication style, or by technology evangelists like, for example, Guy Kawasaki. The term technology evangelist is generally used to describe an individual who is able to convert a large number of people to a technological product, inviting them to participate in a better world and demonstrating the messianic zeal in a posture comparable to that adopted by certain Christian evangelists. It also sometimes corresponds to a professional title. Kawasaki, for instance, had the title of chief evangelist when he worked at Apple. The standards and skills for high-tech demos, to which I just referred, circulate by mimicry as much as through specialized groups and individual coaching. Some of them, I think, will be usefully mentioned. First, a strong emphasis was put on showing versus telling. The presentation did not simply consist in a long pitch, nor in a verbal performance accompanied by gesture and images, nor in a PowerPoint presentation. The heart of the performance was a demonstration of technology. Admittedly, the title of the session was not accurate. It was not no pitches, just wow. It combined a pitch, a PowerPoint presentation, and a demo. Steve Jobs also combined various sequences when he designed shows for the launch of Apple products, but demos played a major part. Secondly, the presentation, and especially the demo sequence, relied on what the professional industry called storytelling. The demonstrator told a concrete story about a situation that possible users of the technology could encounter. The story was structured by a solutionist approach to the world. The demonstration also echoed some of the principles of Aristotelian rhetoric that commonly feed marketing techniques, played not only on logos, but also on pathos and ethos. In more contemporary terms, the demonstrator appealed to the reason of the audience, while also playing on affects and basing his credibility, in particular, on a benevolent attitude towards the audience, what is called Aristotle ethos. The care for others was equally evident in the presentation of life-saving or health technology. But the demonstration wasn't simply based on verbal rhetoric. It implemented what I call a techno-rhetoric. The demonstration relied on the production of words, gesture, and handling of technological devices in a coordinated fashion. Like in Steve Jobs' presentations, the demonstration was marked by a noticeable quest for simplicity, straightforwardness, and concision. The demonstrator presented himself in no more than one sentence, talked very briefly about his company, and then went straight to the point. Few slides were used. The demonstrator succinctly exposed the principles of the technology, and then very quickly focused on its concrete feature and used examples. As he mentioned it, he made sure that he was not too scientific or too technical, and the emphasis was put on exemplifying. Besides, the presentation did not display a large set of technical features of the device. On the contrary, it bore on a drastic selection of the product's features. It was completed in a few minutes, like when Steve Jobs gave a presentation of 3 features only of his new products. The demo itself lasted for about 3 minutes only, and its scenario was utterly uncomplicated, echoing a minimalist and purified set, like Steve Jobs was used to work with various bodies of the show industry. The vocabulary used by the demonstrator was also typical of exemplary high-tech demonstrations. It was largely non-technical and user-oriented. It included familiar terms, superlatives, and markers of enthusiasm. For example, I'm super excited. This vocabulary matched a casual attitude that also expressed itself in the tone of the demonstrator and that participated to entertain. Exactly. The use of short sentences and even slogans that were often repeated, for instance, it's redefining Wi-Fi, we are doing that without invading its privacy, corresponded also to canonical practice. So I will end this description here, so I may talk to conclude. And to conclude, I would say that the running of the demo theater session, and more particularly of the Wi-Fi demo, illustrates how demos were key to the high-tech conference. Together with other forms of public demonstrations, they contributed to make the high-tech event a demonstrative festival and a demonstration of strength, success, and credibility of the company that organized it, while serving diverse aims of the many participants. The analysis of the demo's content also reveals how their details fitted and carried many of the stakes and values of the conference. In particular, demos contributed to display technology as a source of profit, pleasures, economic prosperity, and good for humanity. High-tech and capitalism were shown as compatible with a form of humanism and as a solution to many societal problems. This case illustrates some of the practices and norms of production of demos in the high-tech field. These include the role of storytelling, the importance given to showing versus speaking, and the implementation of a techno-rhetoric. My inquiry also brings to light the ways in which demos help support technological promises, contribute to the marketing of technology, and participate to economic life nowadays. It shows how demos may carry political messages in an entertaining way and contribute to a solutionist view of the world, that is a world that is structured by solutions, especially technological solutions, brought to problems that are made public on the demonstrative sites themselves. Furthermore, this case study illustrates the fact that demos cannot be reduced to proofs, persuasion tools, or theatrical performances in general, or even all of them. While contributing to put individuals in touch or into relation through the mediation of artifacts in action, they also represent full-fledged forms of interaction and a major apparatus for anthropological and economic exchange. So their role shouldn't be reduced, it's proof, persuasion, theater. No, it's more, far more than that. They are, depending on the focus line. So finally, this case, I think, brings to light how high-tech conferences represent privileged spaces for observing the production and uses of public demonstrations in today's world. And also as a reference to look at what was going on in history, of past technological conferences. Hopefully, such sites will be subjected to further empirical and analytical investigations. I try to focus during my talk on one specific aspect. And I think that at least such exploration should help us better understand some of the ins and outs of what I call this demonstration society, which has many demonstrative sites. So thank you very much for your attention, and I will be glad to develop many points that I didn't want to, many issues that I didn't want to address during this very quick talk. And thank you again so much.
Thank you for your talk. So the floor is open.
Yeah. I've got a bit of an obvious question about your presentation here tonight. So when, say, someone like Evans Pritchard does an ethnography of a tribe, he tells us it's the Noel, okay? I guess someone like Bruno Latour, Alava Shalom, say it's John Sapp Institute. Why did you decide to conceal the identity?
Okay.
It's weak crowd.
To be honest, we Googled it.
It's weak crowd.
Yeah, it's about you. Yeah.
It's just, you know, if you read the Code of Ethics of the American Sociological Association, in public, you can, it's accepted practice that you don't conceal things. But I thought, you know, the point was not to, I didn't want to enter, to make sense of the identity of the people. I could have done that, to explain different things, enter into the details. But since during my talk I didn't want to you know, to develop this analysis, I thought I wanted to be minimal and just to you know, to protect the privacy of the actors, because I didn't need it for my analysis here.
Maria?
Yeah, thank you very much for your talk. I would have two questions. The first one is I would like to ask you if you could explain a bit more what is the specificity of this particular case that you use, because your question was what can we learn from observing technological fairs, and then the case from Israeli, this particular demonstration, and I was wondering if it was the presence of politicians and people from the economic world and so on. This is the first question. The second one is that you very much stress the dimension of the progress of technology, which of course is essential in such a fair. But I was perhaps since I'm a philosopher as a background, I'm trained to problematize and bring more questions into debate. I was thinking about the other face of the problem, that is yes, we all are using phones, mobile phones, and computer, and so on, so we accept what we are doing, but at the same time we are giving our data to someone that we don't know, and we don't know what they will do with these data. We spoke a lot about progress, the humanistic aspect, the healthy, and so on. But I was wondering about this other aspect that you didn't mention so much.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. So maybe the first question, which is, you know, I studied, I did similar observation in other technological fairs and conferences in different countries. And I first wanted to know, you know, whether culturalist arguments were relevant or not here, or whether you could see universal aspects of these technological conferences. And also, I thought, you know, these are very intense moments where you have many actors that meet together. So, and they exchange, so this is a very relevant space for, let's say, if you want to study the high-tech industry in Israel, to be. Because people come, they get in touch, sometimes they get into a relation, and you can observe many things. So during my talk, I just focus on some very specific aspects, but this is relevant because when you try to compare what's going on with other technological conferences that took place in history, you know, first it's very interesting to look at socialization process. What are the material conditions for socializing? What is exchanged? What takes place? And you know, in the contemporary period, you can observe a lot of things that may not be as easy to observe in minutes of meetings or minutes of conferences, in letters, etc. So I think this is very relevant. And the point is that instead, when you have you know, in different periods of history, you had, you know, tech conferences, you know, for example, the universal, you know, fairs are quite well documented. But here, you can really see how the demonstrations of technology are a very important device, not only because, you know, in history, you know, there is always, you know, the historiography of scientific and technological conferences. You see, you know, the position saying, you know, there are proofs, there are persuasion matters taking place. We are watching a theater. For historians of art, theater is not an analytical tool. It's a starting point. What does theater do? So when you look at the specific public demonstration of technology, you can see what are the references of the actors themselves. If they make reference to theater, to TV production, to other kinds of things, whether like Steve Jobs, he worked for 25 years with stage directors, people who were doing the lighting, etc. So mix all these know-hows. And when you have high-tech entrepreneurs, you know, sometimes they start from scratch, they go to an accelerator, they are taught certain things by mentoring, or they read book of how to market technologies, and they do a mix, or they do it by mimicry. So it's very important just not only to look at the symbolism or what's going on globally in the conference, but look exactly at the practices that make the conferences. So this is a roundabout answer, but just to tell you, I had several entry points to go to these conferences. There are many mistakes about observing technological conferences. I just wanted to say a bit more about this, but they are very wide. Can do a lot about that. So I mentioned a few things. Regarding the second question, I'll try to be quicker, which is about the privacy of technology. Can I summarize it like that? Like looking at the this, you know, they were this was. I don't look specifically. I didn't want to analyze, especially our privacy and for sure, if you compare it with European country where you have the RGPD, you know, with data protection regulations, there is a big difference, you know, in the way you can portray in public the management of data of people. This is very it is very interesting to contrast, you know, the management of data in Israel with what's going on in the US and in various European countries, because you know, RGPD is affecting, for example, Israeli high-tech entrepreneurs, because when they want to sell their technologies to Europe, they need to take into account the RGPD, the regulation for privacy, into account. So they adapt their technologies for the different markets, and this is a very important aspect of how they build their projects, because sometimes, you know, the entrepreneurs build a project where they use a lot of data from the users, and they can't export the technology abroad due to the various regulations. So they have to change their project. Sometimes they have to abandon their project. Sometimes they have to go in completely different direction. But this is, in fact, not only philosophically speaking, but also sociologically and also, I would say, historically speaking, it's a very important thing. And I think I briefly answer your question.
Comment?
I'm curious about the historic aspect. I wonder in what sense is it even comparable? High-tech fair of today that for investment by entrepreneurs from certain social class privileged, as you say, with one of the 19th century London fairs, different type of people, different purposes. I mean, what kind of comparison is it making?
Right. No, you're right. I mean, this is when you start to talk about comparison, of course, this is only the starting of a huge one you're facing. Why? Because, you know, you're right, I observed different high-tech fairs, but I also did similar observation in popular fairs, like the Paris Fair, where people are demonstrating, you know, vacuum cleaners or that kind of thing. And what, by comparison, there are many aspects that you can compare. One is the management of crowds. You can manage crowds by, you know, you're familiar with how you invite an audience, how you select, you control them, who can come. You can do that by pricing. So if you put high prices, you just invite professionals. You have some high-tech fairs that invite professionals by high pricing during the week, and during the weekend, they propose a shorter price to invite, let's say, the public at large. Also, but one of the things that it's very interesting, for example, to compare the techniques of people at the Paris Fair, the popular fair, demonstrating vacuum cleaners, which are often people who learn that, do this trade from one generation to another. They work 3 months per year. You know, they go to several trades, and then they rest in their province, in their house, and they learn. They have different ways, different techniques of how to build an audience. For example, you know, they would say, "Hi, come here." So they try to find one person in front of them. Then they try to have a second person. They try to arrange them in a row. Once they have the first row, the other people will in their reflection, in their theory, will want to look at above the shoulders of the first rank. Or if somebody wants to go away, they can humiliate them, say, "Oh, you're not a good student. Why are you leaving?" So there are different kinds of technique to build the public, to build an audience. And then the way they perform is not, they are not only good at performing, they are very good at observing. So the demonstrators themselves are very good observers of the crowds. The people in the crowd think that they are invisible. Like sometimes when you see students in an amphitheater, they think they are invisible, while the lecturer can see all the behaviors of everybody, the individual behaviors. So let's look at that. They are spending most of their energy observing the audience and saying, "Oh, this guy is going to buy." And then he will say, "Oh, I want to buy," and the other. The techniques, the know that I take that are developed in the field are not connected to the know-hows that are, you know, conveyed by these persons. And you can really see different theories about how to do high-tech demonstration, etc. And you can see that there are certain common points in common, certain divergences in the theory of doing the pitch, of doing the demonstration. And same thing it's very interesting in history. So I'm not, usually I'm not looking at archives. I'm mostly working on the contemporary period, except on the 20th century. But I'm very much a reader of history of science. And what I observe, it's very fruitful, not only for me, but sometimes I ask questions to historians. When you look at the archives about how this fair went, we didn't observe this. Is it because this didn't take place? Is it because the iconography doesn't reveal the things that I observed today? Is it because your analytical framework, you came with some glasses that didn't make you look at certain aspects of the technological conferences, etc. And usually it's helpful because sometimes I see my colleagues, they go back into the archives. Oh, maybe, yeah, that's not wrong. And so it can bring small effects or larger effects depending on the context, the background, the situation, the period of time, etc. It's very fruitful because precisely because during the contemporary period you can record, you can watch so many things that it's really fruitful for not only to give an idea of what's going on today, but to reflect on what went on for me. Gail?
Thank you very much. I wondered about the limits of the theater and how much it's not theater. They discuss about how many people, they show only one person, and they didn't show us a couple fighting, and they didn't brought us a real 8-year-old man. So, but when they decided to show us with the flowers or the sofa, but no.
Right. Your question, you're absolutely right. I mean, this is a very important question. The thing, just to make a very quick remark, for sociology, so the history of sociology, as one of the, Erving Goffman was a sociologist who developed an approach of the world that was based on a global theatrical representation of the world. So he used the notion of theater as a kind of universal device where he depicted everything that happened among social interaction as being linked to theater, like being backstage, being front stage. Every aspect was linked to being on to represent, to do a representation. This type of approach is different from looking at theater as, you know, some people making reference to theater practice, let's say, you know, having very precise reference to theater. The history of theater itself is a huge field. You know, how you conceive, how you practice theater, it's very wide. So these are two different approaches, and I didn't want to adopt a global, a general theatrical approach of social relations. You know, I wanted to be more specific. So when the actors say theater, I don't think this is an analytical category. Yeah.
I'm not against the use of the word theater. I'm asking when the actors decided to show something, to demonstrate something, and when do they think that there is no reason to demonstrate it?
There is no reason. There is no
reason to demonstrate.
Ah, right, right.
Clearly, they didn't want to bring an 8-year-old man to fall on the stage.
Right, right. Okay, so this is you're right. This is a different issue. So I close this just to say that I didn't want to take theater as an analytical category. That this was not my approach. Just that the actors use this category, and this is the same approach I would have. I want to close this parenthesis. In history of science, when people, some historians of science, use the notion of theater as being explanatory, I think using a Foucauldian approach, I think this might be just a starting point, because sometimes, you know, spectacle is not a theater. There are many differences. So I close it. To answer your question, why do you demonstrate certain things, and why do the actors? In which cases do the actors don't demonstrate anything? Am I right to reformulate it this way, or in which cases do the actors think that they are not able or they are not willing to demonstrate something?
Or they think it's redundant.
Or
This
readily.
will be the most interesting effects, that they don't think something will be useful for them. They decide what will be useful for them.
Right. But the thing, I think, you know, when do you demonstrate and when don't you demonstrate? If you look at the history of the social sciences, Gustave Le Bon said, if you want to be persuasive, don't demonstrate anything. You know, for the, what he called the approach. But
He said that how long ago?
yes,
How long ago did he say that?
in the end of the 19th century. That's right. Beginning of the 20th century. Right. And yeah, you're right. And some, you know, there are theories in marketing where people, you know, you have say, you know, making a demo is not necessary. But what you see that you're right in the 20th century, these are marginal posture. And sometimes you see these marketing people who have this idea that they are not going to make a demo of their products. And very quickly you see their trajectory that they finally adhere to a demo approach of their work. So they move to demos. So you're right that right? Right. So the thing is that you, in theory, you know, you see a realization of that, for example, in the Paris Fair, people can demonstrate a pair of socks, you know, or all kinds of things, you know, what is the border between what can be demonstrated and not. In principle, this is hard to, I wouldn't, as an analyst, say there are certain things that you can't do. But for the actors, this is very variable. Some say, you know, everything can be demonstrated. If you are a technology evangelist, you know, demoing is, you know, very important. And they find a way, like demonstrator in Paris Fair, to demonstrate. And they also think that it is necessary to do that it is essential. You have many theories, you know, reflexive posture about the necessity of demoing everything. So this answers partly your question, I guess. So,
Shira?
About specificity and locality. If you look into the origins of the technology from the living room demonstration, for example, you mentioned radar, right?
Right.
So if it's an Israeli type startup, I would imagine it has some type to the military, and therefore also ask about the biographies of the different actors. This is a very specific thing that has been talked a lot of the Israeli tech industry is heavily invested in or drawing upon military education of their entrepreneurs, and this was completely unpresent in your presentation. So I would really like to hear whether it was purposefully left out and how do you explain this decision of yours. And
right. No, you're right. I mean, absolutely. My approach is precisely to go into the biographies of the people and to understand what type of project they develop and try to look at their. And so the military, you know, the trajectory being in the military, being an instructor, being an officer, etc. Also in terms of credibility, when you are a former F-16 pilot and you demonstrate it as a huge influence on certain agencies in Israel, or if you are certain unit. So I agree with you. I try to have a focused presentation, but you're absolutely right. I didn't mention here, the biography, there are other aspects that the military. So, for example, there are studies right now that are done about depending on the sector. So, if you are in high tech, if you are doing health tech, being going through the military doesn't have the same impact, and so you don't have, the same, depending on the fields, it doesn't maybe very important or not. So globally, you can have a multi-scale analysis, and of course, take into account that. So I didn't do that, and you're right that here, but here also you have to realize that this is there was an international audience. I followed people, coming from abroad, who went to one route to another, and they were coming from Europe, for instance, and they were interacting. So this is an international event. This is not a domestic Israeli event. It has also an impact here about how you demonstrate and how you portray your identity also. It's very important.
I have a question myself. You mentioned a concept, you mentioned two concepts, I think was central, we connected to technology. One was the techno-solutionism, which I think was you explained it. I understood what you meant by that. And then you mentioned also techno-rhetoric. And this, if I was not so sure whether it's some kind of rhetoric which is specific for technology or something which is also to use in technology, and how it's exactly is connected to the demonstration. And so which kind and which kind of rhetoric is, and whether, and I think also I have this impression that it's somewhat connection to the techno-solutionism. So it has this kind of impact on it. So if you can elaborate on that.
Yeah, you're right. I was very quick on that. And I think if you look at the ancient treatises of rhetoric, there are many theories, if you go through histories. What I found very remarkable, that what he theorizes, of course, the eloquence, how you use verbal arguments, also sometimes gesture, the identity of the person, like the ethos, the way he would show that he's benevolent, cares for the audience. But here you are dealing with, let's say, presentations of products that are manipulated. And many actors, the techno-evangelists, the entrepreneurs, the coaches in marketing have developed theories about how you should do that. And there are strong theories. Some are, recipes that are gathered together, like cooking recipes. And people say, for example, don't cross your arm because it doesn't. It's shows that you're not open to the public, to the audience. So they use like bits of psychological theories, and they put them together. But what is interesting is that there is certainly a space, since antique rhetoric, for thinking about how you develop arguments while using a technology, not simply gesture, the posture, or the tone, or the type of arguments, or the images, because also in antique rhetoric, you have the notion of images, the fact that images are very important, that these are metaphors, and here you have a lot of visual support. So I thought it's very important to look at the theories of the actors, to see what can be, how you can analyze yourself as an analyst, all these techniques, know-hows that are deployed, sometimes implicit, tacit, sometimes explicit, and look at that. And in order to avoid to say that this is only rhetoric, because if you say this is rhetoric, you don't open a new objects for investigation. You close. People can think, they will reduce everything as, production of discourse. So I think it's good, it's very heuristic to have another term to describe this field of research. And how it is related to technological solutionism, the notion of technological solutionism is by looking at different fairs and conferences and high-tech conferences, I realized how it was important to have globally, when we reflect on all the data, you think, okay, these people are framing the world as a set of problems, problem solving, and the pitches are all based on that. What is your problem? What is your solution? And this gives a view of the world. It's not, for example, a structural view of the world where you have, I don't know, field, etc. It's a view. If you go to high-tech conferences, one after the other, we end after a year. You do that, you will think that the world is really made of problems and solutions. And it's very important. And I didn't come here just to study high-tech conferences. I wanted to think about what is called the startup nation. So I did different studies in different type of spaces, looking at different things. For example, how an accelerator of startup is run, what people do, how they conduct their projects, etc., etc. So I did various studies. I've done various studies here. But the fact that there is a strong emphasis put on technology as a solution to many societal problems is by itself very significant. The fact that because it empowers the people. If you are in a very structuralist world in the 70s, you see you are just an individual, you are carried out by enormous forces that don't leave many maneuver margins. Here you are the individuals are empowered because they are able to, they can say, oh, there is a big problem about poverty, I'm going to solve it. You feel empowered by the idea that you can empower it, and technology is a very accessible tool to do that. So you feel empowered as an individual to go and meet people, and with Rosental, you are going to, thanks to the technology, solve all kinds of technological problems. And this is very specific. When I compare, my investigation in the high-tech world, both in Israel and other places in the world, this technological solutionism is very important, is framing really the views of the world of these types of these people, of these professional groups.
And this enters also the rhetoric.
And they need, and for that, in order to do that, they need to develop certain know-hows to convince, but also to get in touch and all together. These are very, the demonstration of the solutions, demonstrating the solutions to problem is a very important anthropological moment. I think, if I compare it to marriage, marriage by anthropologists, even pictures that other anthropologists, is, it's a kind of roundabout. You have many resources, material, let's say symbolic resources that are invested, and then many tensions to prepare marriage, and then a recombination of alliances that come out of this very important, very investing moments. I think that a demo is very important for the people. They want to get, funding. They want to prove that they can solve all kinds of societal problems. So they have to invest a lot of energy to think about the tools that they might use for this very intense moment. These are very invested moments, and the technical rhetoric is here. So this part, you're right. is part of the puzzle, and we need that. And just to one more thing, because in fact I erased a lot of theoretical conferences references in my presentation, but one of them, why did I insist on you know, portraying, you know, pleasures, how you can get to, you know, how the technologies are the sources of problems, but also sources of pleasure. In fact, I was thinking about Tocqueville when Tocqueville, you know, tried to understand, you know, the democratic state in America. He thought precisely about, you know, he said the world is not led by long and learned demonstration. So, of course, it remains to be seen with which world he was talking, which world, maybe not only one word. But basically, he was looking at the way that, you know, shorter presentations could help bring pleasures in a democratic societies, pleasures and also profit. You know, what is the view of science in a democratic society for Tocqueville? The science is useful to build, you know, new devices that will be help reduce the cost of production, that will bring new pleasures, and that's how science and technology are appreciated in a democratic society, according to Tocqueville. And really, when I was thinking about that and looking at you know, what was going on in these conferences, and also the emphasis put on the you know, improving the state of humanity also, I was really thinking about Tocqueville and thinking, well, this works. You go in a IT conference in Paris at Vivatech, you go in Israel. Why do the startups have to insist so much in their pitch about, you know, we are not only going to do profit, we are going to improve the state of humanity. Why is it so massive? Why could be one small proportion? So you really have to, the fact that it is so massive, that it is so uniform, I think is problematic, has to be reflected upon.
Thank you very much. I think we should close now. I'm sorry for there are two other questions that waited, but you can ask about them probably in the pub after that. So, and of course, tomorrow we are going to, everyone will go to vote. And now you are all invited to the Hugetzfonei for a drink. I personally won't come for today. I'm apologize because I'm not feeling so well, but still, and thank you very much for coming to us. Claude.